Hey, it's Sean again. We're continuing our Conestoga series. So we've done the front, now we're going to do the rear. There's two parts to the rear. You've got to get your curtain open, and then you've got to unlatch the trailer. So we're going to talk about opening the curtain here. The curtain is held closed by these hinged doors on the side, and those doors are held closed by these latches here at the bottom. So the way that latch works is you've got a rubber snubber that holds it in place. Be careful not to pull too hard on these, especially in cold weather, because they get brittle and they're easily damaged. And then you've got two pivot points. There's two bolts here and it pivots on both of those. So this first one has got a cam action that actually puts the pressure on the door. And then you can't open the door because the latch is in the way, so the second pivot point comes into play to get that latch down out of the way so that now we can open up the door. And the way that grips the curtain is there's a rope sewn in the edge of the curtain that goes into this groove in this piece of rubber weather stripping here. So that has to properly be seated in there and close that door so that it's flat on the outside. So we're going to open up that door, and then at the bottom of the curtain there's a Velcro strap that goes through a slot here at the edge of the trailer in the steel. So we can get that there, and a lot of times you've got to work the tarp out from behind the latching mechanism. Now we'll go to the other side. So again, that same process, release the little rubber snubber, bring the handle down, and then pivot the other pivot point out of the way. Sometimes these need a little bit of lubrication, and then we can open up the other door, release our Velcro strap, and work this out from behind the latch mechanism. So now this is free. There's a piece of aluminum tubing inside the curtain here. It's round on the outside, but it's got a square index on the inside for the crank that cranks this up to store it on top of the trailer while you're having it open. So that crank is stored at the right rear of the trailer. You're going to have to think ahead on this. If you've already backed up to a dock or something, you may not have room to get this out of here. So the storage tube is here. Double check that to make sure that it's securely attached to the trailer. They have been known to come loose. And then there's an original latching mechanism in here that involves a J-hook and a pin, but a lot of times those are damaged, so there may be a bungee involved in holding this secure. Make sure that this is going to stay there so that you don't lose it when you're going down the road. So we'll get that crank out. This can be done from either side of the trailer. There's the square index inside there, so it depends on where you have more space. It can be done either left side or right side. So you can put the end of the crank on the ground and control it here and get that started into that square index, and it should go in there about 3 inches. Then you can crank this up and keep on cranking until that goes right up on top of the trailer, and then it will stay there. Now this can be a little bit of a hazard. You don't want to pull this out. You want it to stay in there, but you also don't want this to be underneath where it'll catch on things. So if you do need to secure it, you can use like a bungee to hold it here, but you don't want it to be in too far. So that's the opening of the rear curtain. Once you've got the rear end latched up, then it's time to close the curtain again. So if you've had these doors open for finger clearance here on the outside, be sure to open them back up again. Then you're going to want to go to your crank, and sometimes if you just start turning this crank, that curtain will want to unroll on top of the trailer. So usually it works best to take a step toward the front of the trailer and kind of push on the crank as you turn to get it over the edge, and then hang on to it because you're going to have a lot of weight on that crank suddenly and you don't want it to tear it out of your hands. Then you can roll it down, set the end of the crank on the ground, come up here where you can control the end and pull that out of that square index, and then don't put this down, put it away right away in that storage tube on the side of the trailer. Again, do whatever it takes to make sure that's secure to go down the road, and check to make sure this tube is securely attached to the side of your trailer. Okay, now we can use our doors to close the back curtain. You want to make sure that this tube is not up on top of the weather stripping. If this is up too high, it's going to upset, so you want to make sure this is down low, and then make sure that this rope is in the groove. Sometimes if you got wind pressing against the back of the trailer, it's going to be difficult to make that happen. You may even have to reposition the truck to be able to get it closed. So make sure your rope is in there. Close this door. Again, make sure that it gets almost flat on the outside. If you've got something going on where that rope isn't fully captured, this is not going to be flat on the outside. That's a clue that something is wrong. So now we can pivot this up into position and use the cam to put pressure on the door, and then use the snubber. All the snubber does is just hold that handle so it can't fall down. It's pretty common for these to wear out. So if you see a trailer that's getting a lot of play in these joints, get it into one of the terminals as soon as you can and get it fixed so that it doesn't get to be a worse problem. And then your Velcro strap to hold the bottom here. So pull that out through that slot and then double it back. This is deliberately like this to allow your trailer to breathe. If you get any air in farther up, then it goes out into the low pressure area here at the back. So again, we're making sure that that rope is captured in that groove. Bring the door closed, make sure we're flat on the outside. Pivot this up into position. Remember, 2 pivot points, and then use the cam to close it, and the rubber snubber just holds the cam in position. And then we come to our Velcro strap. If you're struggling with windy conditions, you may want to do the Velcro strap first before you attempt this. It'll help you hold it in place. So then you should be ready to head on down the road.